Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar this afternoon. My name is Andrew Reams, and I'm a licensing manager in the Innovation Institute for Technology, Office for Technology Management. And today's webinar will help you to prepare your innovation for licensing. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone if they can put their phones on mute, that would be very helpful for us. I'm going to take you through an agenda today that includes options for commercializing your technologies, as well as how you can prepare for the commercialization process. And I'm happy to take questions following today's webinar. So by way of a brief introduction, the goal of the Innovation Institute is to encourage and support innovation and entrepreneurship on campus and in the community. The Institute brings together three offices: the Office of Technology Management, which facilitates the patenting, business opportunity development and licensing of PIT innovations; the Office of Enterprise Development, which works with the OTM to develop startup venture opportunities around PIT innovations; and the Institute for Entrepreneurial Excellence, which provides entrepreneurial education as well as networking and assistance for local entrepreneurs and small businesses. The Innovation Institute is the hub for commercialization efforts at the university, including educational opportunities in technology development and commercialization, as well as student business plan competitions. And the Innovation Institute also has courses and workshops in the areas of startup development that does include entrepreneurial mentoring and networking. The university is focused not only in development of new knowledge, but places a high priority on technology translation to create economic growth. And the business sector is an important partner in research and development for us, providing funding and knowledge and resources to develop and commercialize early-stage technologies. The main reasons for academic institutions becoming involved in technology transfer certainly include to generate licensing revenue, but this really isn't the main reason. As you can see from the figure in the slide, very few licenses actually generate significant levels of revenue. Other important reasons, though, include that it's another way to disseminate new knowledge for the benefit of society, and importantly, it provides an avenue for faculty members to interact with industry. And I'm now going to go on to the section of my talk that looks at options for commercialization. And just to begin, I'd like to provide an overview of our process for protection and commercialization of novel technologies at the university. I think this will be important for you to bear in mind throughout today's webinar. So after submission of the invention disclosure form by the investigator, it's assigned to a licensing manager and then evaluated by the licensing manager and the university's technology transfer committee, which is made up of a group of peer scientists and administrators, and it's evaluated according to criteria of whether it's protectable, enforceable, and licensable. And these are all concepts I discussed in more detail in my previous webinar about the invention disclosure submission process, which is available to everyone on YouTube, and I think was also sent out by the Cancer Institute to all faculty members. However, if the TTC agrees to move forward, the university, especially in the area of the life sciences, will file a patent application and then market the technology to identify a commercialization partner, and then we would enter into a license agreement. And in parallel with this process, the university works with Patent Council to prosecute the patent application. Patent prosecution can be a long process and can take 5 to 10 years. So these processes of technology commercialization and patent prosecution take place alongside each other. We can commercialize university technologies through several routes, including licensing to an existing company, or we could go ahead and create a startup company, and I'm going to talk about this in a lot more detail in the next few slides. These routes are not mutually exclusive. The criteria that we look at for a startup company includes a platform technology that can give rise to a number of products. We like to see a large market opportunity when we're looking at the potential of a startup company to commercialize the technology. Certainly broad patent coverage and a mature stage of development is very helpful. But in some cases, we think it might make the most sense to license to an existing company, especially if there are only a small number of large firms that dominate the field. And it's true that a large and existing company might be better placed, for example, to get the technology to the market faster. It's possible, though, to license the rights to commercialize a technology in a specific field of use to an existing company, and then also license the rights to commercialize the technology in a different field of use to a startup company to pursue. So there are multiple commercialization scenarios that may involve different company types and that can be used to maximize the commercial value of the technology. The university supports the creation of startup companies and has many supporting programs and events focused on working with investigators to develop startup companies. This is actually a main focus area for the Innovation Institute Office of Enterprise Development. The Innovation Institute has employed business mentors, which we also call entrepreneurs in residence, with experience in commercializing early-stage technologies and developing new startup companies. Oftentimes, an entrepreneurial student working in the investigator's lab will participate in this process, and it provides students with an exciting new educational and perhaps career opportunity. You can play a key role in bringing your innovation to the marketplace, but you should be aware that the university conflict of interest policy is important and describes how faculty can participate in development of a new startup company. So an investigator's ability to participate will very much depend on the type of research, whether it's animal or clinical research, and perhaps the contractual relationship between the university and the company. And we encourage you to meet with the Conflict of Interest Office. Chris Murden and David Worley in that office would be happy to speak with you if you have any questions or seek any clarifications regarding the university conflict of interest policy. The next stage of my talk is going to focus on how to prepare for commercialization. In considering whether to license and commercialize your technology, a company is thinking about various factors. They're thinking about the market opportunity for your technology or the product that your technology will be developed into, how much it will cost for them to bring the technology to the marketplace. Can they develop the technology without infringing on someone else's intellectual property? And this is a concept that is known as freedom to operate. And they're also thinking, could they develop a competing product, perhaps by getting around the intellectual property that we have so that they don't have to in-license the technology. In order to introduce your technology to potential commercialization partners that we work with, we first begin by developing a tool that we call the value proposition. And we do that, and we work with our investigators to build this value proposition. And it's a tool that describes the problems in the market that need to be solved. It describes the size of the marketplace, how your technology provides a solution, and why it's better than other competing technologies. It will also include the IP coverage and the scientific basis for the technology. Once we've developed the value proposition with you, our next step is to market it to industry. And investigators market their technologies just by going about their everyday work. They market their technology when they publish scientific papers, when they attend and present at scientific meetings. And our Innovation Institute can support you in marketing your technologies by helping to develop coaching materials and other marketing materials, and how to develop what we call an elevator pitch. An elevator pitch is a concise, carefully planned, and well-practiced description about your technology. It's meant for a situation where you find yourself in an elevator for a few minutes with the head of a top company, and where you only have a limited amount of time to tell them about your innovation. This type of pitch can actually reach a much larger audience than a presentation can, if you think about how many people that you might bump into at conferences that might ask you about your technology and might even be interested in how they can participate. We've also developed faculty coaching cards, which have helpful tips on how to attract industry or inventors to your technology. This includes keeping marketing materials handy, collecting business cards, and sharing contact information of people that you meet at conferences with our Innovation Institute. And I encourage you certainly to send me any contact information that you might become aware of, so that I can follow up with companies in regard to your technologies. It's also a reminder to show your enthusiasm about your technology and to keep things simple when you're talking about your technology, since the person you're talking with may not have the same technical background that you have. The Innovation Institute will also work with you to build technology marketing documents and to market your technology through university press releases. We put technologies on the Innovation Institute website, and members of the Innovation Institute, including licensing managers, attend partnering meetings at conferences where we can arrange to meet with companies to discuss their interest in your technology. We're also able to leverage our vast relationships with industry and investors to make them aware of your technology as well. And this is just an example of a technology marketing document that we can develop based on a faculty member's innovation. It provides a background to the technology and describes the advantages of the technology, the stage of development, as well as the intellectual property status. The reverse side provides an introduction to the inventor's background, as well as associated publications. Our business development activities really begin once we have either a copyrighted technology or patent protection. It's important to realize that not all patent-protected technologies are at the same stage of development, and some technologies are actually at an earlier stage than others and may need more work to be of interest to commercialization partners. So the Innovation Institute focuses commercialization resources on technologies with a strong value proposition. And we also continue to stay in touch with investigators who have technologies that are an earlier stage, helping them to move their technologies to a more mature stage of development. And we do have some funding that might be available to help faculty undertake proof of concept type of experiments when appropriate. So going back to the slide that I showed you earlier that describes the university technology transfer and commercialization process, we're actually now at the stage where we've marketed our technologies to identify a potential licensee. When entering into a license agreement, it's important to remember that there are unique considerations to universities. We'll always, for example, retain the right to practice the licensed invention for non-profit research and education purposes. We will always retain the right to publish research, but we are prepared to delay publication briefly to permit patent filing. Universities require broad indemnity from licensees, and we will only give very limited warranties. So it becomes very important that companies undertake their own due diligence on technologies developed by university investigators. The process for developing a license agreement typically follows a series of steps, and I've put those on this slide. Once we attract interest through our marketing activities, we will put a confidentiality agreement in place in order to share confidential information that's not already in the public domain. This is very important since it prevents loss of patent rights that would otherwise result from a public disclosure. And typically also to protect our technologies, we would file a patent application even before entering into a confidentiality agreement, and that also provides important protection for our intellectual property before we start talking about it with anyone outside of the university. The next step would be for the company to arrange a meeting or a conference call with our investigators in order to get more detailed information about the technology. The company will then undertake its own due diligence before deciding whether to partner with the university to commercialize the technology, in particular because we don't provide any assurances or guarantees about any of our technologies. And the next step would be for the company to enter into an option agreement or a license agreement and negotiate the financial and legal terms of the license agreement. The company, for example, might decide to enter into an option agreement as a first step, which provides them with an exclusive right for a limited period of time to evaluate the technology before deciding whether to negotiate or enter into a license agreement. But during this time, when they're, where they have an option agreement with the university, they don't have the right to market, sell, or offer for sale the technology, but it does give them an exclusive right to evaluate the technology. The terms of a license agreement include whether the license should be exclusive or non-exclusive. Non-exclusive means that the technology can also be licensed to other companies at the same time. We can license the technology for commercialization in various fields and geographies, and the terms of the license is defined in the agreement. The idea is to maximize the value of the technology by arranging a license agreement that's specific to the commercial interests of a company and enabling other companies to exploit the technology in other fields or geographic areas or, for example, other countries. License consideration, which is typical for all our license agreements, include upfront fees as well as milestone payments. We have royalties that are included, and we expect the companies to pay back patent costs as well as future patent costs. And the consideration coming to the university can also include, in the case of a startup company, equity in the startup company. So as I said, the idea is to maximize the commercialization potential for the technology, which might involve licensing the technology to different companies to exploit the technology and commercialize the technology, perhaps in different countries, perhaps for different fields, for different uses. It's important to realize that innovators share in a substantial portion of the license agreement. Innovators themselves personally receive 30% of the proceeds, and another 15% is received by the academic department, your academic department. 10% is applied to a university development fund for development of new technologies, and 30% of the consideration that comes back to the university is actually placed in a patent rights fund, where it's utilized for other investigators to be able to protect their patents for their technologies, the university will use money in the patents rights fund to protect other patent rights for other university investigators. And then our Innovation Institute also receives a further 15% of revenues that come back to the university. There are many opportunities to become involved in entrepreneurial pursuits at the university. We have a program, for example, called PIT Ventures, which is designed to enhance the rate of new startup formation based on PIT innovation and improves the chances of these companies being successful. This program actually provides immersive, hands-on experience for PIT innovators in starting companies. It also is involved in developing business plan competitions, and we also have technology commercialization courses, such as the annual course From Benchtop to Bedside, What Every Scientist Needs to Know, as well as other business plan competitions, including the WELL Student Healthcare Entrepreneurial competition, which is a terrific competition which encourages scientists in the area of healthcare and students that are working in innovations in the area of healthcare to commercialize their technology and teaches them how to go through that process. We also each year have an annual technology showcase where technologies are presented by investigators to the business and investment communities. And that's a terrific opportunity for our investigators to make contacts in the business community, which can be very helpful for them, either to mentor them or to give them tips and guidance on how to commercialize their technologies and things that they should be thinking about. Also, in collaboration with Pitt's School of Law's Innovation Practice Institute, as well as the law firm K&L Gates, the Innovation Institute also offers the Start Smart Legal Seminar Series for startups, which helps to provide legal guidance, which might be otherwise hard to access, to innovators and students working on developing startup companies. So I'm happy to take questions in regard to this webinar and any questions that you might have on how we can continue to help you to license your technologies. Thank you. We invite you to submit any questions you have through the online chat function. Well, please don't hesitate to contact me. I have office hours at the University of Pittsburgh Cancer Institute every Friday from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock. I'm in room 1.32E of the Hillman Cancer Center, or otherwise please feel free to call me or send me an email. My telephone number is 412-624-3134, and I'm looking forward to talking with you anytime to help answer any questions you might have. Thank you.